everybody. Today we'll be talking about influence, witchcraft, and wizardry. You might have seen my sticker at the front. I speak at a lot of these conferences, specifically ones that are thrown here in Atlanta. And today I definitely want to talk about several things on your journey, if you will, into what I think is one of the most important lessons that I've learned over the past 2 decades. But I have to go ahead and pay tribute to the headmaster, the guy who's written several of the books that I've read that I think that really changed my life. And I will be suggesting those books to you as we go through the curriculum. His name is Robert Cialdini. He is a professor. If you've ever read one of his books, then you know what we're in for. He's fantastic. If at the end of this, you're not interested in reading any of his books, then I didn't do a good job, and that means it's totally okay. So I want to start this off by saying money. Good, now that I have your attention, I want to go ahead and ask you all a very simple question. When someone's up here and presenting, and I want you to shout out the answer when we get to this part. When someone's up here presenting, what is the one word, the one most important thing that could happen? So the person who gets the answer right, and I point to them and I hear the word, is going to get $100. So you got 30 seconds on the clock. Most important thing when a conference is someone's presenting up here. That's a good try. Come on, $100. What? Eye contact, no. Just keep talking, say the words. No. Connections, you're getting closer. I'm looking for a specific word. All right. You know what? I'm going to give it to you for connections. Come on up here and get $100. Yeah. Yeah. Look, I'm going to tell you, what the hell? Oh, that's what happens next. Nice. So I want to prove what the answer I was looking for, and this is close enough, is the audience. The reason I wanted to hear that is because you can work all day on your eye contact, you can work all day on the jokes and the comments, but the thing that separates you from standing in front of the mirror and practicing your talk is the audience. And the thing that separates you from a lot of things that you want to have is the connection that you have with other people. And influence is the idea about making that connection. It's about making something that actually matters, okay? We can say things all day, but unless we actually connect with our audience, it doesn't really matter. So there's several books that I'm going to go over here, but I want to tell you the story about something that's happening at your company, in your group of friends, and I know this happens. There's somebody there who has great ideas, but nobody listens to them. It's usually a very, very angry, sordid developer who's sitting in the corner, who doesn't talk very much. He's like, I knew this would happen. And then eventually he does get frustrated enough and he speaks up, but nobody really listens to them. They don't actually hear what they're trying to say. And even if they're right, later on they have to be like, oh, I told you so. And everybody's like, shut up. Nobody wants to hear I told you so. Right? To that person, they don't feel completed because they don't have that connection, and they're carrying that inside. And it makes their connections and their work, their life, difficult. And right next to that person at every company is another one. That person is capable of saying the smallest thing and having everybody hang on every word. That person says something and everybody says, that's the great idea. They're sitting down to lunch, and then anybody can get up and leave, but when that person stands up, everybody says, all right, lunch is over. We're going this way. That person has connection. Some people make it happen. And that is why I'm going to say to you something that you never say to a bunch of nerds, unless you're playing, is that magic is real. There are some words and some actions that you could change today to be more influential and more connective to people who you are trying to talk to and influence. And I'll say this, I did take years of dance class, and some people might say, oh, well, when you're trying to influence others, that's a bad thing. Any tricks, any gimmicks that you're doing, will hurt those kinds of people. But when I took my dance classes a long time ago, the first thing they said is, be a strong leader. If you lead well, then people enjoy dancing with you. You don't have to know all the moves. As a matter of fact, they don't want to dance with people who are trying to do all the moves. They want to dance with somebody who they can follow. And I think that's true throughout my entire life. And so you need to make that magic happen. And I hope here that I'm going to raise the EQ of the room. The EQ is the emotional intelligence or the emotion quotient. And it's shown that when they did a survey that for every point of EQ a person has higher, they get another $1,000 in their salary. So on average, this goes there. These are not developer salaries, you can tell. But I think the graph would continue on. And so I gave Homer, see I used your real name, $100 today, but what I really hope to give you all is thousands and thousands of dollars in EQ. So we're going to go over a couple of different pieces here. And I broke this down, and I'm a nerd at heart, so I did a lot of off-brand Harry Potter jokes here. But we're going to start off with charms, and then we're going to go into potions, and then as a learning exercise, if you want to advance, defense against the dark arts and divination. Okay? So we're going to start off with charms. Charms in Harry Potter were words that people would say that would have some kind of magical effect. And what we found scientifically is that this is true with people. And you might have heard some of these before. If you've heard some of these charms before, then today is the cue for you to memorize it because you've heard it a second time today. If it's your first time hearing it, I want you to make this the only time you needed to hear it in order to apply this to your life. First one is because. When they did a study where they had people cutting in line for copy paper, 60% of people let a person cut in front of them to go ahead and say, make 5 copies. Y'all are too nice. I would not have let that person in front of me. But when the person tried to cut in line and they said, I need to go ahead because, and they gave a valid reason, because I'm in a rush. I have the statistic numbers here. It jumped from 60% letting them cut to 94% letting them cut. They used the word because. That's a huge change in the connection that happened there. They gave the person a reason. Now, how important is that reason? Because I'm in a rush, you don't want to lie. But one of the things that happens is they changed it to a nonsense excuse. Can I cut because I need to make copies? Oh, really? I didn't know that that's why you wanted to get in line for the copy machine. So you might think that that moved from 94% down to 93. Just the word because changed the outcome. We're not using because enough. How many of you heard that people will say, I don't listen to anything that you say before you say the word but. Oh, this is such a nice dinner, but, and everything before that is removed. If you don't want that to happen, change the word but to however. This is such a nice dinner. However, I wish I didn't drink so much there. I had such a good time. So if you change but to however, it lessens that negativity that we are not working in the same path, that we're not working together, okay? Another one is some people say, I have already done this, can you also do this? And then the other way someone will say it is, if you do this, I will match what you do. And scientifically, they did this in hotel rooms, saying whether or not they would donate if a person reused their towels. Well, the small change of phrase, you think these might be the same exact thing. As a matter of fact, programmer brain, the outcomes are exactly the same. But it yielded 45% more saying, hey, I'm going to do this. Will you also do this too? Will you join me in that? And this next one, you'll totally get because you're all smart and super awesome at paying attention. It's called labeling. Labeling is when you tell someone what's about to happen, like I just did. I know you'll do the same in the future. Does everybody remember Luke Skywalker I know there's still good in you. Yes. There he is labeling Darth Vader, and spoiler alert, it winds up working out for him, right? Sorry for the few people who still haven't seen Star Wars. I like to use this one a lot in emails. And just remember, you can also label people in a pejorative sense. You could actually mess people up. If you said, hey, everybody, how you doing? Here's Kevin. He's our complainer. Well, you've already passed on the fact that nobody's going to listen to Kevin after that. Be careful how you label each other. Together, we could label each other up or down. Additionally, you need to personalize your messages. We had a marketing campaign where a person was speaking to the crowd constantly. But I pulled him aside and I said, you never say the word you. It's been scientifically proven, there's several studies that say that using the word you, the individual language, is the most important. As a matter of fact, in public speaking classes, they tell you this as well. They say you more. Talk to the singular. Make sure that everybody knows that you're talking to them as well, not just to the room. Would you at least, I'm behind, that's what the problem is. Would you at least, is a second thing to a follow-up principle. So everybody probably knows a little bit about anchoring maybe, right? Anchor pricing, anchoring in trying to ask for your salary, you ask for a higher number. And you might have also heard that a lot of people I've talked to ask me about decoy pricing, which is when the movie theater decoy prices an insanely expensive large and then puts the medium like 50 cents cheaper. So you're like, well, I might as well get the large, because if I get the medium, I get half the popcorn for 50 cents, that I'm gonna save. I'm just gonna go the other way. So anchoring happens all the time, but when it comes to language, you're not setting prices. So there's a really cool study by Dr. Hogan, Kevin Hogan, and what he did was, he was actually a psychology professor, and a Girl Scout came up and said, hey, would you like to buy these tickets? They're extremely expensive, it's the ball, they're like $300 tickets, right? He goes, no, absolutely not, I'm not gonna buy that at all. And she goes, oh, okay, no problem. Would you at least buy 5 boxes of Girl Scout cookies? He's like, sure. So he buys the 5 boxes of Girl Scout cookies, goes to his office, and he stares at them and goes, I didn't want these. He immediately calls everyone into the office and says, we need to figure out what just happened to me. Because I don't want these Girl Scout cookies. And that's the most amazing part. The way for you to use anchoring in conversations when you're looking to get somewhere is that you have would you at least as the fallback. As a contrast to a large ask, you have a second one. So you say, hey, I want to go ahead and sponsor and go to Connect.Tech next year, and I want us to be the platinum sponsor, and I want our company to do everything. And they said, oh, we don't really have a sponsor. Okay, well, would you at least send me and my team? Yeah, no problem. No problem, we'll just buy the tickets for you. Here's the last one here's one I want to say you have to be careful with, okay? All these things in influence you have to use with your ethics involved. Is that way too often I find, especially with developers, we say sorry way too often. As a matter of fact, I have to stop some of my team from doing that. Sorry we were so late on this reply, we had a team retreat, right? If you can change that same sentence from sorry to thank you, then you're still aligned with the person you were communicating with. Thank you so much for your patience. We were on a team retreat. I didn't get back to that email, but now we're going ahead and get started on it. Changing sorry to thank you is a simple substitution cipher that actually applies consistently, and I can't tell you how many times the first word out of my mouth would be sorry, and then I rewrite the email. So the textbook for this one is going to be this book here by Robert Cialdini. It is the book Yes. Now, they wrote this book, and then Robert Cialdini blew up, so they had to make his name bigger. But this is 50 scientifically proven facts and ways that people have been influenced to say yes. This is a fantastic book. It is full of charms. It is full of mechanisms that help you actually have more influence and more connection with people that you're trying to talk to. So if you're looking for some simple charms to go beyond this, we covered some of my favorites, but 50 more exist in this book. And it is available on audiobook if you don't like reading. The second piece I want to go here, and this is the biggest part of this, is that I want to go through potions. So in Harry Potter, potions are these things that people work on, and they tend to them, and they stir them, and then they have some kind of magical power. You don't always have them available. But with these 7 base ingredients, you have the ability to have potions ready, okay? And so, say for potions, you get the whole Snape thing. There'll be no silly wand waving here. For those of you who have the predisposition, I will teach you. Yeah. Oh, all right. There's a Death Eater in the house. Okay, good. So the 7 potions that you should have, and here's what I recommend: memorize these. Afterward, if you see me around, ask me to go ahead and tell you the 7 potions from memory. I've had it memorized for 10 years now. Okay. This goes through every email interaction I ever go through before I hit send. 1 is reciprocity, okay? There's a great story of a raffle where the first person comes in and says, hey, I bought a Coke and I bought you a Coke too. Here you go. And it's later on, afterward, they say, by the way, my kid's having a raffle. You want to buy any tickets? Well, guess what? The ticket sales went up, I have the number, something like 200%. Because there was a small gift. All the when you have the sponsors and their vehicles give you like little pens and you're getting set there, those things invoke a want to give back, right? Doing something for others, karma is real, scientifically proven, so we can be okay with this. If you do something for someone else, they feel more inclined to do that for you, okay? Another thing that people do is they care a lot about how you interact with them. So if you give somebody a mint versus you give them 2 mints, you change the tip level from 3% to 14%. Scientifically, consistently, reciprocity is a part of how we are a social group. And so next time you see somebody in the Slack channel asking for a little bit of help, just remember that giving that kind of energy actually comes back, and it really does help everybody out. Reciprocity, if you can give a small gift, you can get a lot more later on. The second one is going to be consistency. Consistency is part of another thing of human culture. Let me ask you this. If I said, can I come to your house and put a giant sign, just a huge sign on your front lawn, and we're going to dig in your front lawn, and we're going to put posts in, and it's going to say, please drive slowly. How many of you would let me do that? Not many of you, right? But if a week before then, someone came up to you and said, hey, we want to put a small placard in your window that says, hey, drive carefully. And you said, yeah, I care about that. That's something I'm into. And then I came back a week later, say, oh yeah, I see you've got the placard like that. Now I want to do it. 400% increase in people letting them put this giant, ugly sign on their front lawn. When I grew up as a kid, there was a giant political sign on my front lawn, and I was confused. I said, Mom, how the hell did this happen? She goes, I don't know. She said, I didn't know it was going to be like that. And I was like, okay. So we really care about the consistency of a message. And there's a lot of times when you go buy a car, it could feel like a little bit like a trap because we know this about ourselves. Like, okay, well, if I do this for you, then will you buy the car? Getting small affirmations along the way to make you feel stuck in your consistency, right? Just remember, we like to be consistent, but don't use it as a weapon because we can feel it, right? If you can have a person be consistent, and then you can get small affirmations, you can move towards a larger goal. The third potion here is social proof. The study is that if I was walking down the street and I stop and I look at that tile up there, people will walk right past me. But if I get 4 of my friends to stand around me and look at that same exact tile, guess what happens? Everybody stops and starts looking up at a random tile in the ceiling. Because we, again, are social creatures, and social proof is important. One of the things that happens if people from that side of the room all stand up, start running out that door, do you think the people on this side of the room would just stay sitting there? No. Not even seeing some kind of threat, we actually act very significantly off the decisions of everybody around us. So thinking about social proof and putting that into your conversations is key. Likability is a really difficult thing to do. One of the things that we found is that likability splashes pretty well. And so if you put, that's the reason why they put models in front of cars. They put models in front of cars and they ask people, how fast does this car go and how expensive is it? And because there's models in front of it, the number's higher. We think that if something's likable, the thing next to it also has to be likable. It's also why if you're ever going to be brought up on stage, you'd always have somebody go ahead, have someone else read your details. Say, hey, here comes Gant. Here's what's going on. Let's get started here. If you can do that, then you can actually increase the likability. But here's the fun fact. It actually increases the likability of you as well. When you talk positively about other people, you become more likable too. The inverse is also true. If you're always saying negative things about people when they're not in the room, while you could be 100% true, that splashes on you as well. The likability splashes. Be around likable people, be around likable things, include them close to you, and it splashes. Include non-likable things, talk about non-likable stuff all the time, and that's how you'll be known as well. Next one here is authority. We have an appeal to authority. How many of you know about the Stanley Milgram experiment with the scientists telling them to electrify people in the next room? So Stanley Milgram says, I don't know how, Nazi Germany did such terrible things. You know what I'll do? I'll study Americans, and that'll tell me what's the difference between us and them. And then he put them in a lab and asked them to do terrible things because people in a lab coat told them to do it. Well, guess what they did? They did it. They did it just because a person in a lab coat told them to do it. And so he didn't have to go to Germany to do the study. He found out that it's just people. We pay attention to authority. It's a big part of how we run our lives. And if you've ever read, has anybody read the 4-Hour Work Week? One of the first things he talks about is about building authority for your brand so that way you can actually have a brand. You have to have authority for it first. So adding authority to your emails or your conversations really helps out. Saying, I'm going to Connect.Tech because it's just one of the best conferences in Atlanta and I absolutely love it. And it's won awards, I'm sure it has, right? But the appeal to authority works. We're on potion 6 now, which is scarcity, which means we don't have many more potions left. What we have next to scarcity is the fact that people use it to close. If you need something to happen and the time's running out, the window needs to run out, and then scarcity matters. They took a cookie and they put it in front of a group of people, and they said, sorry, we only had one extra cookie, but it's forever. Everybody wanted that cookie because it was the one cookie that they had. But it didn't change how much people cared about the taste. They didn't rate the taste of the cookie better. They just wanted it more. And so what's really interesting here is that if you took 100 cookies and put them on the table, people didn't want it as much. Scarcity sells. Scarcity closes deals. Scarcity makes people move. If you're needing a decision to happen and you aren't getting action, you need to apply some scarcity to it. Again, you see people using this in terrible ways, like real estate agents will try to influence you, and I think this is important. You need to know these things so that you can use them against them. They say, oh, well, we have a lot of people looking at this property. Best thing you say to that is like, oh, well, good, let them look. Sounds great to me. And then they'll stop using scarcity on you because it's not working. The last potion here is unity. And this is just basically saying that we care about finding a common ground with each other. It's why we go to conferences. It's why we find communities. It's why we want to be together. As a matter of fact, in relationships, one of the first things people will do is they'll form like an us bubble. Have anybody been dating and they're like, okay, that couple over there, do you think they're on a date or do you think they're married? Oh, do you think that's his daughter or you think he's out of town on a trip? Like, what's happening over here or there? Let's play this game for a minute. What you do is you create this us world, this us bubble, creates an extra connection. And if you can do that, then you can connect with people on a significant level that actually changes the audience is just a 1-to-1 ratio. That connection is significant. So they've done all kinds of studies. One of the things they had was they said, hey, you got to negotiate this deal. They told one group, you have to negotiate this deal. It's a cutthroat deal. Do everything you can and make the deal happen. And they took the other group and they said, we're going to have you negotiate a deal, but first get to know each other. Have a good time. Get to know each other. Okay, now we're going to do a negotiation. Guess which one had the better negotiation process where both of them left happy? Guess which one's got the better deal? So the trick is, it was the ones where people were talking to each other, and they got to know each other. They created an us bubble together. They had unity. We seek unity, and you need that as far as getting your connection together. And it's kind of the final potion in taking a look at that process, because that's what we're really trying to do anyway. This is the book that I highly recommend for this one. This is just by Robert. It's called Influence, and he goes over 6 of the 7 potions in this one. This book is amazing, and in each potion, he's basically telling you all the scientific studies, how it's worked against people. I wish I had enough time to talk about all the studies of these, but these books have absolutely changed my life, right? For additional reading, I'll say that for divination, Robert Cialdini did go ahead and do another book, which is called Persuasion. This is where he talks about the 7th potion in that. It's a fantastic book that I highly recommend once you've read the others, that I would say. And then after that, if you really want to kind of get into this and you're afraid of salespeople telling you what to do, Defense Against Dark Arts, you should definitely read a sales book. And Secrets of Closing the Sale is a wonderful sales book. And it keeps you enthralled. It just gives you tons and tons of ideas, but it really lets you know what's in the mind of the person who's trying to influence you. So I would say that this is good for Battle Magic or Defense Against the Dark Arts. So in review, I want to make sure you know that we have because, however, I will match, labeling, free to refuse. Oh, did I cover free to refuse? Good, just make sure. Be sure to use you a little bit more, would you at least, and then change sorry to thanks. On the other side of that, you have your 7 potions: reciprocity, consistency, social proof, likability, authority, scarcity, and unity, okay? I'll make these slides available, but I don't want you to use these slides. I want you to go ahead and buy those books. If you think that you want to go ahead and learn these things, please, please, please read those books. And I want you to know those did do a significant change in the way I do work. For instance, in the real world, just real quick, I'll go over a couple of emails and we'll see if we can figure out if that person's using the potions and charms or not, okay? No Reason to Panic is the title. Dear backers, we can't really understand your reason to panic. As we specified in our comments, our intention is to return to the previous design. Yes, it will take some time, and we are lagging behind on the timeline. But it is our first campaign, and nobody said it would be easy. We understand your position, and in a way, there's a lot of scammers. What? But if we were them, we'd develop a different scenario, wouldn't we? We're trying to fix the final issues regarding the design. We'll keep you updated as usual, grateful for your patience, and we appeal to your understanding. So, do you think this person's read any of those books? This is a real email I got. Probably the same real email most of you get whenever you fund a Kickstarter and a random object shows up 2 years later, right? This person did not pay attention, right? And then I just want to give you an example email of a training email I said. So, greetings from Infinite Red. We're familiar with companies in your exact situation. So this creates a sense of unity. Good call on training, it's happy complimenting and reciprocity. Some of our most successful workshops are mature companies looking to get started with React Native. Some of our other ones are the most mature companies looking to get started with React Native. That's social proof. On-site training works best for fastest teams. We generally cover more information deeply with high bandwidth personal interactions, talking about what we're going to deliver and how we're going to deliver it. Let's get you a quote, etc. Let's see, that's just kind of like a few more closing. Cheers, congrats on switching to React Native, etc., etc. So here's just one of the emails that we've sent out. And before this email leaves, it's almost like you go through Potions GPT, and you go back, you say, where can I add more? Do I need scarcity yet? No. Do I add more unity, more social proof? Yes. Am I going ahead, is there something that I can do for them? Is there something for reciprocity? Is there likability in this email? All those thoughts go through it before the send button happens. And the weirdest thing about it is, now, I made these slides a while ago. I want to tell you something. Now, every email, they're like, so Gant, do you mind doing that thing you do on our email before it goes out? I actually get called into a lot of other situations to make sure that they're like, wow, we liked your emails, and they actually get some responses. And one of the other things that happened is I was in a group, and I used, but of course you're free to refuse. So there was a person who was not volunteering, and 3 people talked to them. And finally, I just talked to them. I said, look, here's what the deal is. It's gonna be fun. Here's what we're doing. This is all the pieces of it. I look forward to it, but of course, feel free to refuse, which I used the line from Charms. And then the next day, the person signed up as a volunteer. And they said, what did you just do? That person's refused 3 other people. And I said, honestly, I just told them the way it is, offered unity to them, and then said, like, it's okay. Like, it's okay if you don't do it. It's totally fine. And so what I found is that with these kinds of messages, you really normally have trouble. And I want to say, that person who's at the company who's not being heard, I have a secret about that person. About 15, 16 years ago, that was me. I was that person. I was in the company, and I couldn't get people to listen for the life of me. I had so much trouble connecting with everybody, having connections with friends and audiences. I was getting more and more frustrated because I had something to say, and I couldn't get that interaction to happen. And then my life started to change. 1 charm and 1 push at a time, changing things from 47% to 94%, changing things from 10% to 400%. I started to figure out how to actually lead the dance, and people enjoyed interacting and talking and doing those things with me. So I want to say that, by the way, my name is Gant Laborde, if you want to follow up on me. You have this potential right now, right? You all are smart, fun individuals who are capable of adding these charms and capabilities to your daily conversation because you know that this is important for you. However, it is up to you. It is something that you could add for yourself today, but of course, feel free to refuse. Thank you.